Hey guys, welcome back. I hope you are having an amazing day. Let's get right into the stories. The first one is an entitled People story. I've been a farmer my whole life. My pappy taught me everything I know about working the land, tending the animals, and living off the fruits of our labor. This farm's been in my family for 3 generations, and I aim to keep it that way. So you can imagine my shock when I woke up one morning to find a huge concrete helipad smack dab in the middle of my cow pasture. I rubbed my eyes real hard to make sure I wasn't seeing things, but nope. It was as real as the sleep still crusting my eyes. I threw on my boots quicker than a jackrabbit on hot concrete and marched myself out there. The helipad took up a good chunk of grazing land, and my poor bovine ladies were huddled together on one side of the fence, looking mighty confused. It didn't take long for me to figure out who the culprit was. My neighbor Jeb was quite the character. He fancied himself an artist and was always working on some harebrained project or other. Last month it was a giant metal tube thingamajig that was supposed to represent the meaning of life or something. The month before that, 50 truckloads of manure got delivered to his place so he could sculpt it into what he called an ode to the nobility of horse excrement. Yeah, Jeb was a few horses short of a stable, if you catch my drift. So here I was, staring at a colossal concrete parasite sucking up space on my pasture. I marched myself over to Jeb's place and banged on his door loud enough to wake the dead. He answered wearing nothing but striped boxer shorts and a beret. "Morning, neighbor," he said cheerfully. "Here to admire my newest installation? The only thing I came to do is tell you to haul your rear and gear and get this eyesore off my land," I said. Jeb chuckled like I'd told a real funny joke. "Come now, you know this is where my creative spirit takes flight. I call this one Ascension, a representation of man's eternal quest for spiritual liberation." He prattled on about the deeper meaning behind the thing, but I cut him off real quick. "I don't care if you call it the Mona Lisa. It's on my property and I want it gone." Jeb frowned, the first sign I'd seen of him taking me seriously. "But destroying art would be such a crime. This is my vision. I can't move it just because it's not to your tastes." I took a deep breath, trying to keep my cool. "Last I checked, vision or not, building on land that ain't yours is a crime. So either you move it, or I'll get the law involved." Jeb's lip curled in anger, and his nostrils flared like a bull about to charge. For a moment, I thought he might just try and gore me with those nostrils. Thankfully, he restrained himself. "Fine," he huffed. "I'll come move it this afternoon." "Much obliged," I said. Crisis averted, or so I thought. I went about my chores feeling relieved, but later that day I found the helipad just as it was that morning. Not a single footprint marred the perfect concrete. Fury burned hotter than jalapenos in my gut. I went back over to Jeb's and didn't bother knocking politely this time. I banged and hollered till he finally opened up. "You best keep your word or we're gonna have a big problem," I spat. Jeb looked at me like a confused puppy. "Keep my word about what?" "About moving that fool helipad off my land." "Oh, that," Jeb chuckled. "I changed my mind. It simply must stay where my muse instructed me to place it." Now I consider myself a reasonable man, but in that moment I swear I could have throttled the life out of that weasel. I got right up in his face and said through clenched teeth, "Move it. Today. Or else." Jeb shoved me back. "I don't respond well to threats," he hissed. We stood there toe to toe, tension crackling between us like lightning before a storm. Before things could escalate, I forced myself to step back. "This ain't over. You'll be hearing from my lawyer." I turned around and left before my temper got the better of me. True to my word, I called up my lawyer cousin Jimbo first thing the next morning. He said what Jeb had done was clear-cut trespassing and property damage, and the law was on my side. Jimbo drew up a strongly worded legal notice for Jeb to vacate the premises in 7 days or face a lawsuit. I felt sure that intimidating piece of paper would finally shake some sense into him, but a week later, I was still staring at that stupid helipad. Jimbo filed papers at the courthouse, and a sheriff's deputy paid a visit to hand-deliver Jeb a court summons. The day of the hearing arrived, and I dressed in my Sunday-best cowboy getup, complete with shiny belt buckle and ostrich leather boots. In the courthouse, Jeb looked as smug as ever, chatting away amiably with his lawyer in hushed tones. When the judge arrived, Jeb's lawyer tried to claim the helipad as protected artistic speech under the First Amendment. But Jimbo rightly pointed out that didn't give him the right to illegally construct it on my land. The judge agreed and ordered Jeb to remove the helipad immediately at his own expense, or he'd be held in contempt. He also had to pay a hefty fine to the court for the offense. Jeb glared at me, lips tight. but didn't make a peep of protest. Victory was mine at last, or so I thought. The next day I saw the helipad was still there, unchanged. Jeb was violating the court order. That did it. I'd had enough of his foolishness. I called Jimbo and asked him to start drafting papers to sue for enough damages to bankrupt the crook. Jimbo whistled. That's pretty bold. You sure about this? Darn tootin', I said. It's time to show him and this whole county that I ain't a man to be trifled with. All right then, I'll get started on this straight away. I tell you, the day I received those lawsuit papers felt nearly as good as the day I married my darling Betsy. Serving him legal documents saying I was suing him for a whopping $200,000 in damages and compensation sure took that snobbish grin off his face. He called me up begging me not to ruin his life's work over one little misunderstanding. Too late for that. I told him he only had himself to blame before hanging up on him. The day before court, I walked outside to find a note hammered roughly to my doorpost. Congratulations, you win. I hope it brings you great pleasure to destroy true art. Jeb, I whooped and hollered loud enough to raise the spooked chickens from their roost. Finally, I hurried out to the pasture and nearly cried to see a work crew dismantling that ugly old helipad. They broke it up into rubble that got carted off in a big dump truck. My pasture was restored to its former grassy glory. At court the next day, Jeb was a shadow of himself, clothes rumpled and hair unkempt. His lawyers told the judge they were willing to settle for the full $200,000 without a trial. Jeb barely reacted. Guess my lawsuit had sapped all the fight out of him. Jimbo nudged me, grinning ear to ear. We'd won, and then some. I happily agreed to the settlement. After court, Jeb came over and extended his hand stiffly. No hard feelings? He asked, with a pained look on his face. I had half a mind to spit on that hand of his, but I thought of Betsy and how disappointed she'd be if I sunk to his level. So I offered my grimiest, callus-covered hand and gave his a hearty shake. Water under the bridge, I lied. Jeb slunk away, shoulders slumped. I walked out of that courthouse standing as tall as an oak tree. No way would that yellow-bellied worm ever trespass on my land again. With the extra dough, I decided to celebrate by taking Betsy on a real nice cruise like she'd always wanted. As we sailed off towards the horizon, I breathed in the fresh sea air, feeling like justice had finally been served. The next one is a pro-revenge story. I'm a millwright who specializes in rebuilding natural gas turbines. I work with a top-caliber crew where everyone has a role to fill. My role is overseeing anything that's lifted with a crane. My technical title is rigger. If a load falls, it's my fault. If someone gets hurt while I'm in control of a lift, it's my fault. If equipment is damaged while I'm in control of a lift, it's my fault. The incident in question happened about 2 years ago, but we'll need to go back a couple of years farther to get the backstory. I was a fresh member of the crew and had demonstrated competency in rigging. So after roughly 6 months with this group, my superintendent put me in charge of all rigging. I wasn't the fastest rigger, but I was safety-focused and insisted on doing it right every time, even if it took a little longer. This meant that my superintendent didn't have to watch over every rigging task and could go relax because I had it under control. Another millwright joined the crew about the same time I did. Let's call him Larry. We didn't get along at first, but after a few months we became friends. Larry was the act now, think later type, much like the superintendent I work under. Larry was prone to making mistakes because of that attitude, but he was very fast and worked like a mule at all times, and I respected that. He wasn't especially skilled in any one area, so he had no special position. That meant sometimes he'd get put on less glamorous work, and I soon learned he was very jealous of my position as the rigger. At times, he would make comments like, "I'm gonna take your job," not in getting me fired, but bumping me down a rung and him taking my spot as the rigger. He'd come up behind me while I was looking over my checklists to point out something I may not have checked yet. If supervision was nearby, he'd make sure he was heard. At this point, I should mention that I stick out like a sore thumb on this crew. I was raised in a very strict Christian cult, but in my mid-20s, I realized what was going on and left, at great cost. I lost my family and friends because of strict shunning rules the cult practices. Some of the stricter things stuck with me, like I've never been intoxicated, I don't use tobacco, no recreational drugs. I speak professionally without slang or colloquialisms for the most part. These traits stick out from a crew of men that travel the road and work in harsh environments away from home for months on end. But Larry, he fits right in. Larry quickly became the superintendent's puppy, bringing him gifts of his favorite alcohol, staying out late after work with him, even rooming with him on the road. I, on the other hand, leave work, hit the gym, cook my food for the next day, and make sure I get at least 6 hours of sleep so I can perform the next day. I realize that puts me at a disadvantage socially in the workplace, but I prefer to let my work speak for itself. Anyways, fast forward about 18 months. We're starting a project just before COVID hits. About 2 weeks into the job, I have to attend a mandatory class through my union. It's a 40-hour class and in a different state, so I'll be gone for pretty much an entire week with travel time. I get permission from supervision and leave, with Larry rigging in my absence. A few days later, I'm lying in bed stressing out about the final test I have to take the next morning. If the test isn't passed, the entire week is wasted. I always psych myself out before a test, but in reality, I don't have anything to worry about as I'm a good student and test well. My phone goes off. It's a text from Larry. "I love you, bud, but I'm cutting your throat," I reply. "What are you talking about?" "When you get back, I'll be the rigger. You can do the crap work from now on." I'm not proud of the response I came back with, but it's how I truly felt in the moment. Be careful about cutting the throat of someone smarter than you. I'm far from the smartest person you'll ever meet, but I do enjoy reading, studying, and learning. And being smarter than Larry wasn't an accomplishment by any stretch of the imagination. The next morning I passed the test and headed back to the job, where Larry had, in fact, usurped my position as rigger and was lording it over me as I went about doing the tasks he normally would do. To be completely honest, it was kind of like a vacation at first. Get paid nearly $40 an hour to clean parts or torque flanges with no stress. Sign me up. But I was upset. I was upset because I knew I did my job better than he would. I knew that he got along better with the superintendent because of their similar personalities, but I didn't feel that I should lose my position simply because Larry had more in common with our superintendent than I did. Regardless of that, I was now dealt these cards, and I had to play them. Just 3 days after I got back from class, though, the job was shut down. COVID-19 was just now sweeping the country. Out of an abundance of caution, the plant shut the project down until further notice. We were sent home for about 3 days and then called out to an emergency shutdown where a turbine had crashed. We roll out and are on the job 48 hours later, in the middle of nowhere, Alabama. We get right to work. On this particular unit, you pull the entire roof off in 2 sections, with a crane to open the enclosure. Compared to many things we lift in a project like this, the roof weighs very little. The turbine rotor may weigh over 100,000 pounds, but the roof usually weighs around 7,000 lbs. Lightweight, but it is large, and there are critical parts around the roof that can be damaged if not lifted carefully. The typical procedure is to be on top of the roof after it's unbolted, be in a full-body harness, and tied off to an approved anchor point capable of holding at least 5,000 pounds per OSHA regulations. We then slowly take the weight of the roof with the crane until it's floating, and then climb down off of it and continue the lift until it's set on the ground, or on a truck to be moved. The superintendent instructs me to go on the roof with Larry and assist him. Do whatever Larry tells you to do. Okay, boss. I put on my harness and climb to the top and begin to assess the situation. The rigging to lift the roof is 4 5-ton chain falls. It's capable of safely holding 20 tons, well over the weight of the roof. The crane is also well overrated for this lift, even with the boom extended all the way out in order to clear another building on the way to the ground. Larry has it all rigged up, but no tension on the wire rope slings, and then I notice his crucial mistake. He has forgotten to account for boom deflection. When a crane takes the weight of a load, the boom flexes down. Depending on the crane setup and the weight of the load, it can mean that while your crane hook might be centered in your load with no weight on the hook, once you get the weight of the load on the crane hook could be anywhere from a few inches to a number of feet off center, which means that when the load comes off the ground, it swings. Swinging is bad, always. Enough weight swinging could tip the crane, crash into equipment, crash into a person. It's very dangerous. At this point, I start calculating. Is this weight enough, even swinging, to tip this crane? No, not even close. Is it enough to break a chain fall? No, not even close. Are there any people working around us that could get hurt? Nope. It's just us. Is there any equipment that could be damaged if it swings? Yes. An electrical control panel, which has all power killed to it and has been disconnected, is in the swing path. I decide to let Larry hang himself. He looks at me and asks what I think. I tell him, "This is your show, boss." He asks what I mean. I look him in the eye and draw my finger across my throat. He gets nervous because he knows exactly what I mean. starts double-checking everything. He still doesn't notice the boom deflection. After a couple of minutes, he decides I must be talking out of my ass and proceeds with the lift. I stop him and remind him to tie off with his harness. He doesn't realize it, but we're about to go for a ride. Generally, when I'm rigging, I first find out what the thing I'm rigging to weighs. It's a vital piece of information. If I know what it weighs, I can have the crane operator track how much weight he has on the crane, and I'll be able to know when the object should start to pick up. If we get to over 10% more than the object should weigh, there may be something stopping it from moving, and we need to stop and reassess the situation. Rigging could fail, the object you're lifting could jump into the sky, all kinds of mayhem may ensue if a hidden bolt holding something together breaks because you used too much force to lift it. I ask Larry if he knows how much the roof weighs. He doesn't. I do, but don't tell him. He starts signaling the crane to slowly hoist up. The operator complies and starts lifting. I'm watching the boom get pulled more and more off-center. We're probably 2 feet from the center of the load at this point, meaning a swing that could travel nearly 4 feet. I stop Larry and ask him to see how much weight is on the crane. 11,000 pounds. 4,000 more than what it should weigh. This roof is in a bind, because we're not picking it straight up, but at an angle. It's either not going to move, or we're about to fly. I brace myself. Hoist up slowly, Larry calls over the radio. Boom! The whole roof shoots a good 2 feet into the air and swings wildly towards the control panel. Larry and I are riding it like pirates in the crow's nest in a hurricane. We crash into the control panel, bending it over at a 45-degree angle, destroying most of its components. People start pouring out of the nearby trailers to see what the commotion is all about. The crane operator is yelling over the radio, asking what the hell just happened. I'm smiling. Larry is shaking. He sees me smiling and knows that I knew. We get the roof set on the ground and are met by our superintendent. He's chewing Larry's ass hard. He gets to me and asks why I let it happen. I just say I just did what Larry told me to do. The superintendent is no dummy. He's seen a thing or two and knows exactly what went down. Larry is demoted, and I'm reinstalled as rigger immediately. And a few shifts later, it's all smoothed over. Larry and I are actually good friends now. We've been through a lot together and have each other's backs these days. He's now the foreman on our crew and lets me do my thing. Failing your way to the top is still a valid way of progressing in my field, but I'm happy for him. He's actually good at it. And I guess that's all there is to say about that. The next one is a petty revenge story. I am a light-skinned Latina American, and I lived in Korea for a couple of years during university and grad school, as my major was Korean interpretation and translation. During my time in Korea, I was lucky enough to attend music shows from time to time. For the K-pop uninitiated, music shows are free to enter, provided you have at least one of 3 items. A copy of the album of the group you're coming to see. B, proof of purchase of the album digitally on one of the approved music vendors in Korea, or C, the official lightstick from the most recent concert. Priority entry was always given to official fan club members who had all 3, then fan club members who had 2 of the 3, and then fan club members who had 1. After that came non-members in the same priority tier. The group I had come to see hadn't opened official fan club registration in almost a decade, so the group's management decided to do away with the fan club priority, and did it on a first-come, first-served basis, but kept the whole 3 items go first, then 2, then 1 thing. I had all 3, and I got there early, so I got a good spot in line. These queues often had us waiting outside for hours while the previous round of filming finished up. The thing about these music show venues is they're very small. They have limited capacity and allow 2, 3 groups fans in to watch them film at a time, so not all people who queue for a group get in. In this particular instance, there was trouble with foreign fans causing trouble by taking pictures, not listening to instructions, so venue staff literally went through and quizzed each foreigner in line on their Korean. If you couldn't understand, you were booted. I passed with flying colors and kept my spot in line. Here's where the revenge starts. Because of the aforementioned issues, a lot of Korean fans hated international fans with a passion. For this group in particular, so many people were pissed that they had to wait in line behind foreigners because they'd done away with the official fan club priority. Now here's me, sitting alone in a queue outside on a hot summer day. A group of Korean girls sat in front of me, and a lone Korean girl talking on her phone sat behind me. I was minding my own business, playing games on my phone after passing my Korean quiz with the staff, when I heard the girl behind me talking crap. She was chatting with a friend, I suspect, because she was dropping a lot of curse words and specifically mentioned These foreign roaches ruining things for us. I want to kill them. She mentioned me in particular, and said that she bet I'd bribe the staff to keep my spot in line even though I couldn't understand Korean. Okay, so, it's harmless crap talk. I don't know this girl and I don't know her friend. In the long run, it doesn't affect me, right? But it really rubbed me the wrong way, especially because she was talking quite loudly. So I grabbed my wallet, politely and quietly asked the Korean girls in front of me to watch my bag and hold my place in line, and went to the convenience store. I bought a round of water for everyone. It was heavy. I had about a dozen bottles of water. I get back to my spot in line, thank the girls in front of me for holding my spot, then gave them each a water. I gave a water to the group in front of them, too. Then I kept one for myself and turned around and handed one to the girl on the phone with a smile. Immediately, she lit up and thanked me in English, smiling brightly and taking her phone away from her ear. As I hand her water, I say in perfect Korean and still smiling, "The next time you loudly crap talk the foreigners, make sure they can't actually understand you." When I tell you it went silent in the immediate area, you could hear a pin drop. Her smile melted off her face faster than an ice cream cone on Florida pavement. She turned beet red and muttered to her friend on the phone that she had to go and sheepishly apologized. I accepted, she had water, and I felt better about myself. Bonus, the girls in front of me heard the whole thing and adopted me into their group for the day. Fun was had all around. Thank you for watching. I would really appreciate it if you could like the video and subscribe to our channel if you haven't already. We'll see you again tomorrow.